So if you haven't heard the news yesterday provided by Deadline, I'm sure that you guys are probably checking it out now or just hearing about this today, is exactly what's been going on between Lucasfilm and Karyn McCarthy, who by the way was the original creator of the Acolyte that was wrongfully really handled when it came to her departure and how she was not paid accordingly by Disney and Lucasfilm. If you guys want to read the whole story, it's out there, it's everywhere, and it's a very big deal. But we're going to be going over what Jon Favreau had to say about all of this, surprisingly, and how he really kind of gives his 2 cents on certain aspects. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that Deadline talked about this all day yesterday of how Karyn McCarthy was handed a pink slip for the Acolyte way back when, we're talking months and months ago, and this is, of course, before things were really rolling for the Acolyte, and like I've said many times, the Acolyte has been a very toxic production, and this is the prime example of how toxic it really has been. Alright, so you have this creator that was not paid even by her short time working on the Acolyte and doing a lot of different things with the show. And that's a part of the lawsuit as well. Alright, there's a lot of things happening with the Acolyte series and Lucasfilm getting sued about this by Karyn McCarthy. So let's dive into what Jon Favreau had to say, because it's very interesting to get this point of view from a creator, and especially a creator that's so high up within Star Wars like Jon Favreau himself. So, with that being, of course, put out there, one thing about Favreau is that he always respects people, right? And I think that this is yet another example of how he kind of stays very even and doesn't really lose his edge. Let's tap into it. So, with many new projects currently being worked on by John and Dave, they also are getting ready to make some big announcements at this year's celebration event. However, Jon Favreau, as of late, has been getting more involved and talkative with the fans. He recently made a response to Lucasfilm getting sued by Karyn McCarthy for the Acolyte series and not getting properly paid by Disney and Lucasfilm. Now, Favreau had this to say: "Well, I think the whole situation right now is something of a mess, and it's only going and is only giving a bad image for what we are trying to do with the franchise. So I kindly ask everybody to focus on the good and the positive stories that we are putting together instead of some studio drama. I got the chance to meet Karyn McCarthy, and she is a wonderful person, and it's heartbreaking to see how she was treated and what she is going through. These kind of things always happen in the film industry and is nothing new, but it is new for Lucasfilm, and it came off as a big surprise to me, honestly." So let me just stop right here for 1 second. Now, Karyn McCarthy, she's really not... She's not somebody that you may have heard of. She hasn't really done like big blockbuster, like multi-billion-dollar projects or anything like that, but she is out there in the film industry, and she was supposed to work on the Acolyte. And the way she was handled, I would say, was rather pretty bad. I mean, it's a prime example of how they handled the whole Gina Carano situation terribly, and they also handled this situation terribly. In fact, I'm almost surprised that Gina didn't do anything like this because of how she was fired, without getting a proper call-in or a phone call or email at the very minimum, and just unveiling it to the public like that. I believe that she may have had a case there. I don't know, who knows, but moving on to the next big thing, Jon Favreau really putting it out there that he wants to just focus on the good, focus on the positive, and I respect that. I do respect that out of Favreau, I really do. How he doesn't want to really focus on studio drama. This is a guy that I like because he really stays very optimistic and positive, stays away from a lot of the negativity, and let's face it, Lucasfilm is a company full of that. But right now it's kind of divided. You have people following in John and Dave's steps, and you also have people following in Kathleen Kennedy's steps. And that's why you get, different employees believing in certain things about where Lucasfilm is going. It's funny because the fandom may be divided, but Lucasfilm employees and crew members are also too as well. And it's just very ironic to me. So when we look at stuff like this, of what happened to Karyn McCarthy. By the way, I talked about this here yesterday, if you guys want to jump back a couple of videos there. But the pink slip that she got, I think, alright, that's number one. Number two, though, is that they didn't pay her properly for the short time that she worked on the Acolyte. Now, moving on, he goes on to elaborate, alright? I always felt that the Acolyte needed a more organized crew, and it's the one big flaw I can admit as a creator for that show, is that they did not have their cast and crew organized properly. This is a whole thing that's going on between McCarthy and Lucasfilm, is only going to get more involved, and I would rather focus on my own work instead. It's a shame that this is where we are heading at this point in time for us, and I'm just hoping it does not give myself and Dave a distorted image of ourselves to the fans of what we are trying to achieve with the amazing franchise that we want to fully respect for George Lucas. Now let me just stop right here for a second. Now John and Dave, it's definitely not distorting the fans' image, I don't think, to you guys, but it may be distorting the image of how Lucasfilm operates as a company, basically, is what it's doing right now. And that's exactly why Bob Iger is calling in, John and Dave to get all these privileges, to clean up house over at Lucasfilm, firing some very terrible employees and crew members, and to replace them with more passionate, driven, motives there to create a better franchise at heart. And that's what's happening, and that's what's going to take place over the course of the next 2 years. There's also a big plan to get George Lucas as the head of the story group by 2024. So there's a lot of great things happening out of all of this, and I think Favreau's take on this is very even. He's not going over the edge. He's not really yelling at anybody or calling anybody out or naming people or anything like that. He's just saying what he thinks about the whole situation, how he believes or fears it's going to change Lucasfilm as a company through the eyes of the fans, right? And how he fears it may change people's vision of themselves, such as John and Dave as creators, which I don't think it's going to impact them. He goes on to elaborate further. I personally am very put off, too, that they did not pay McCarthy what she was owed, but that's about as far as I will go with this whole drama happening here. Let's just focus on the good and the fun of our upcoming installments, shall we? And you know what? John has a point. I mean, Star Wars is about fun, exciting things to look forward to. The mythology is amazing. I love everything about the franchise. It's just that Disney really went off course with the sequels, with Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett, because they were all Kathleen Kennedy-driven projects. Kenobi and Boba Fett may have involved John and Dave to an extent. When it came to Kenobi, it was practically next to nothing, though. John only had a say in the matter of telling Joby Harold to insert a line of dialogue for Kenobi to say that he had a brother, or that he thinks he has a brother, to set something up special for Rey. Alright? Now, we talked about that too, we'll tap into that a little bit later, but the thing about this that really caught me off guard is the fact that, this is going to be an ongoing process, and we'll be getting more developments. So, anyways, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.